Welcome to Brick by Brick. Join me, Lauren Winnett, as I share my personal journey of building a thriving real estate and hard money lending business from the ground up. Along the way, we'll explore the strategies, challenges, and breakthroughs that come with growing wealth. Whether you're a seasoned investor or aspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the world of private lending and real estate, this podcast is packed with actionable insights, real-world stories, and mindset tips to help you build your own path to success brick by brick. Welcome to another podcast of Brick by Brick. I'm your host, Lauren Winnett. Today, we have with us Jason Seward. Jason is a fund manager and runs a hard money lending company out of Virginia. He is somebody I've had the pleasure of meeting over the last few weeks. And I believe the first time we ever had a conversation, the conversation stretched on for about 45 minutes. So you're in for a treat on this one. We're going to talk all about mindset, all about his fund, about his lending business, how it compares to some of the stuff that I'm doing, and probably hear some pretty interesting stories because if you don't know, Jason has a podcast, Burn the Ships, correct? We just talked about this, Burn the Ships. And a lot of the topics that he talks about are near and dear to my heart, about entrepreneurship, making sure you're taking action and moving yourself in the direction of what your dreams are. So, Jason, thank you for being on the podcast. I really appreciate the time.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, Lauren. We had a little bit of technical difficulties in the beginning, but we're rolling now, and I'm happy to be here.
That's right. It's part of being an entrepreneur, right? Is you just you figure it out, you make adjustments, and you move forward.
There you go.
So I mentioned a touch about what you are, but not nearly enough to encompass, all the things that you're doing. Can you give us a little bit of overview about, what you're doing, what you're driving towards, and kind of where you came from?
Yeah. So I'll start off. Anytime I get asked to tell about who I am, I start with my family. So I've been married to my wife Katie for 17 years. I got to think about it every time because I don't want to get it wrong. And we've got two wonderful kids, Emma, 13, and JJ, that's 8. And so they're, everything we're going to talk about and everything I talk about centers around them, right? Even in the business, they're kind of the driving force. But outside of that, pretty typical story. Right out of college, I went to work, bounced around for the first couple years doing a couple different jobs, but landed at an insurance company here in Virginia Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau is a national brand, but each state has its own entity. So I went to work there. I was about 23 when I started with them, settled in. I started doing insurance sales. I was working right in my hometown where I've lived my entire life. A very small town in Virginia. It had a lot of success from a sales standpoint and just overall career standpoint in that career. And that evolved into more of a leadership role. So my last 8 to 10 years in that career, I was like an area manager, a territory manager. So I had a lot of agents under me, a lot of staff, and it was by all measures of a job and, a corporate career. I loved it. It was a great job. But all along the while, I had started building a real estate portfolio. So I was basically doing, for your listeners that probably most are familiar with the BRRRR strategy. So that's how I kind of got into real estate. First it was some live-in fix and flips, my wife and I, with really no strategy. But then it evolved to BRRRRing, where I would buy houses, fix them up, refinance them, take that same capital to go to the next one. Did that for 5 years or so with a partner of mine, and then built that to a point where we had the confidence and we could see the path forward doing that full time. And I was able to walk away from my corporate career in 2022. Since then, we've kind of dialed it back a little bit on the growth of our portfolio because we leaned really hard right out of the gate into hard money lending. Both of us, my partner and I, were independent of each other, but lending our own capital. So we were doing just private loans to, fix and flippers in our area and folks we knew through networking groups. Quickly saw how profitable that could be as a business. Obviously, we were just using our own capital at the time. So we went down that rabbit hole, did a lot of research, hired a consultant, and started a debt fund where we operate that. We're going on 2 years with it, where we raise capital from investors, accredited investors, and then we lend that capital out to fix and flippers and real estate investors.
Awesome. So a lot of things I want to touch on there.
Yeah, it's a lot there.
A lot there. I want to go all the way back to the beginning. And the reason I want to do this is you hear a lot of times entrepreneurs, I was an entrepreneur from the beginning. I had a lemonade stand. I was always selling stuff. That is not my story. I grew up in a small farm town in Michigan where my my job was working constantly, right, on the farm, but I did not have that entrepreneurial drive. I didn't get that until later on. And so I'm curious if you kind of always had that kind of entrepreneurial drive, or always selling stuff, working, or if that was something that developed later.
No, I like to my core, I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. I've always been a hustler, and it's kind of you hear the story a lot, but I was raised by a single mom. We didn't have a lot of money. And so money, I wasn't an entrepreneur at the core because of money. It was just, I liked the independence. Even as 8 years old, I liked the independence of creating something of value and I could get something in return for that. Like that was intuitive to me. So all throughout into my teenage years, college, everything like that, every job I ever had, I was thinking with the mindset of how can I do this on my own, or how can I create something similar on my own. So I had a lawn care business when I was a teenager for a couple years. I worked for about a year. I worked on a crab boat. So I did crab pots and water, sold crabs and stuff like that. And everything I did, and I had a lot of small businesses that just failed right out of the gate, but everything I did along the way, I went into it with the mindset of I was going to blow this up. Like it was just going to be the biggest thing ever. So I've always thought that way. Where I lost that a little bit is, I mentioned I was in that corporate career for 17 years. That career scratched several of those entrepreneurial itches for me, in the sense I really didn't have much oversight from a management standpoint. I had the freedom and flexibility to kind of run everything like I wanted to. Um, but at the end of the day, it wasn't mine, right? And that ate at me for years and years and years. And so, once got some momentum with real estate, it did not take long for me to start figuring out how to leverage that to get out of that career. So to answer your question, it's always been there. So,
Hey,
yeah.
someday I'll meet somebody. I don't understand why I don't have that, because growing up with a farm family, right? My dad was an entrepreneur, but he did not pass that. Like we never thought of him as an entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
I don't understand. But anyway, so if you always had this entrepreneurial kind of drive, like what was it that drove you to go to college and then move into a W-2?
Well, there's a difference in like having that type of personality or drive, and then actually having the discipline to act on it, right? Or not so much discipline, because I am a pretty disciplined person, but the consistency, the stick to itiveness to things, right? So
Courage and maturity, maybe.
exactly. So like my biggest problem to this day, I have to fight it every day, is I never have a shortage of ideas, right? So the problem is I have a very difficult time honing in on one or two just to go after, because every day I'm filled with new ideas and things like that. And that's good to some to some points, especially when I have a partnership that keeps me reined in, with my business partner. But I went to college because, yes, I wanted to own something of my own, but I didn't know what it was. And I didn't know where to go next when I finished high school. And the next step was to go to college. I didn't declare a major until my junior year. Well, like going into my junior year, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I did business. It was an easy a major, and I wanted to own a business one day. So I just did that. So yes, I had the entrepreneurial spirit, but I didn't make decisions to set me up to be an entrepreneur. It just kind of evolved.
Yeah, I mean, but you had some sort of long-term goal, right? And the only thing you could do is create momentum. The momentum you had was get a business degree. So it was
Yeah.
something, ready? Better
Yeah.
than I'm gonna go be a vet or something, right?
Right.
And
But I mean,
truly off track yourself.
everything I've done along to this day, until now, I've got my own business and it is doing well. But up through this point, like when I went right out of college, I didn't have a job lined up. So I went and worked at the same Italian restaurant that I worked at when I was in high school. While working there, I was trying to talk to the owner of how I could buy this restaurant. I'm 20 years old and I have no idea what that looks like, but I was thinking, how can I make this my own? And then when I went to work for the insurance company, the whole time, how can I own my own insurance company? I was thinking that way constantly. So it was always there, just, took a while for something to stick.
Did you have examples in your life growing up that were buying businesses or had that kind of mentality? Or where did that come from? Because I don't think it's totally normal to work for somebody and think, how can I buy this business from you, seller financing wise,
Yeah.
right?
I think it's more, this has gotten me in a lot of trouble over the years, especially as a teenager, right? But I've never I respect authority. And when I have a job and I have a responsibility for somebody that has to tell me something to do, I do it. I've never failed at that, but it always grinds at me to not, it has always grinded at me to not be the ones making the big decisions. Like I just want to make big decisions. And like everything I'm a part of and I've ever been a part of, as I'm doing the job, I'm always thinking of like better logic around ways to do this job, or more efficient ways to do it. Or man, I could take this and it takes 30 minutes now the way we're doing it. I could do it in 10. Let me try to blow that up. And I'm just always thinking that way. And when you think that way and then you present these ideas to maybe a corporation and those get shot down, it's discouraging, right? So that was probably, I didn't have the closest thing. Like my grandfather owned a few small businesses when I was small. He ultimately ended up working for a company until he retired. My grandmother was a big real estate agent in our area, but she didn't own that business. She wasn't a broker. She was just an agent. And those were probably my two closest examples to entrepreneurship. Other than, like you mentioned, my whole dad's side of the family were farmers. So I mean, that's a business as well, but I wasn't involved with that at all.
It's a business, but it's more like a lifestyle. I
It is.
mean, like there's a big differentiating line between a farmer as an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur, right? It's a
Yeah.
whole different.
But the ones like I'm in a big farm area, the farmers that do have that like legit business mindset, they roll. Like they
Oh,
do
they're
really good with it, So
yeah, they're the ones with the brand new tractors and the
yeah,
nice, and
right.
then there's, my family's getting or was getting there, right? But it was my dad and my uncle, and not that mindset. And I think there was a lack of abundance mindset too,
Yep.
right? And
Oh,
I think you see
100%.
that a lot in farmers of,
Yep.
scarcity mindset, and I can't do this because of that. And then you get the guys that have abundance mindset, and then they explode. This is exactly like anywhere else in business, right? If you don't have an abundance mindset, your business will wither and perish
Yep.
eventually.
Yep.
So, all right. So we've gotten through college. You're now working for Farm Bureau. Why rentals? Why not start your own insurance company, or why not move into something else, or why did you head down that path of buying rental properties or living in them and flipping them?
So it's a great question. While I was good at my job, it was a good company. It provided a great income, all those things. I didn't enjoy I understood insurance. I believed in the product I was selling, especially life insurance. But it's not a tangible product, right? It's not, it's very difficult. Like life insurance, for example, that was the biggest, that and crop insurance to farmers, but those were my biggest products. And I'm selling something that literally I have to make you visualize yourself dying or somebody in your family dying. So these are morbid conversations. Now, it's a product everybody needed. I believed in it and I didn't mind selling it, but it didn't excite me. So the idea of like launching a business to do the same thing I was already doing that I wasn't excited about, there were periods I had a chance to buy an agency locally, probably 2015, 2014, 2015. And I was very interested and could have done it, but I didn't because I knew that like I buy this, it doesn't excite me. Nothing exciting. Real estate, as you know, I love solving puzzles and there's always a puzzle to solve in real estate. And so going back to my teenage years, my grandmother, who was a real estate agent and she did very well as an agent, always preached to me, whatever you got to do, just somehow, whether you're working a corporate job or you want to go all in on this, but always keep a foot in the real estate game. She always preached that to me. So I guess that was a decent influence for me. But so all along the while, like even in my early 20s, I was looking for opportunities to buy houses and flip them and things like that. I didn't know, I didn't have an education around it, but instinctively I was drawn to that. Like I would see an old house in my county, I drive by it, and immediately, instead of like saying, man, that house needs some work, I'm thinking, let me find out who the owner is so I can talk to them and see if I can get a good deal on it. So because what I saw was a puzzle that I needed, if I could get in there, I could start piecing it together. And on the back end, I'd have this cool picture to look at. And that just intrigued me. I mean, that's really why I was drawn to it.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
So when you were just getting started, were you finding, do you have a mentor to help you kind of figure out? Because I mean, flipping isn't easy, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot to it, and especially if you don't have a construction background. Did you have a mentor, or were you losing resources online, or were you just kind of figuring it out as you went?
Figuring out as I went, and which has been my entire life. I'm a big ready, fire, aim person. Like just jump in and we figure it out. And man, and I tell everybody this. I don't recommend being that way. I don't at all. It's just the way I'm wired. I I do a worse job when I have a foolproof plan, everything put together before I jump into things. I'm gonna get a worse result than just jump head first and figure it out. Like when I do that and my back's against the wall and I have to really think through things and solve complex problems, I tend to do better. So to answer your question, not only did I not have a mentor at that point, and I've changed this mindset a lot, I didn't even believe in the idea of a mentor. Like I wasn't going to pay somebody to show me something that I was confident I could figure out on my own. A foolish way to do it, but that's how I did it early on. So I made a lot of mistakes. I remember, well, our first rental was a house we lived in that we fixed up, and then we bought our next house, and then we put a renter in it. So that was a little bit different. But the first rental I bought as a rental, the only underwriting I did was I knew what I was going to be paying in mortgage, and I knew what the rent was, and there was like a $300 spread there. I said, "Oh, this is a home run." I didn't account for any expenses, no capex, none of that stuff. Like it was so that, I didn't have mentors. I didn't have good advice, but I don't think I would have gained all the experience and knowledge through mistakes had I had those things, so I don't regret it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should regret it because of the two options, or there's more than two options, but let's say there's two options of ready, aim, fire or analysis paralysis. Ready, aim, fire is going to get you farther faster. You have some setbacks along the way, but if you're stuck and you never take action, not only are you not moving the ball forward at all, but you're going backwards just through inflation, through everything else, right?
Yeah.
And so you've got to be able to take that step forward and do something with the knowledge you have, or get the knowledge somehow, which is by doing something, right? And,
Right.
and usually it's a combination of both. Read some stuff, then try it, fail, try it again, read some more stuff, ask some questions, get a mentor. So I'm interested to talk about your mindset around not thinking mentors are beneficial. Because I think that's a path that a lot of people, especially in business, they go down of why should I pay someone X amount of dollars? Why should I join a mastermind? Why should I do some of these things when I can learn this on my own? Let's say, I don't know, take example, like Google ads, right? I can go figure Google ads out. There's tons of resources online. I can do all that. Why would I pay someone to help me do it? Or why would I pay someone to do it for me? And so they don't, and then they waste a bunch of time. So talk me through like how your mindset changed from this is a total waste of time to this is something that's very important that everyone should be doing.
Yeah, so I leaned heavily when I partnered with my business partner now, Bill Phillips, back in 2018, I believe is the year we formed our LLC. We were both like leaning heavily into, we were listening to all the podcasts, reading all the books. We were kind of self-education, right? But we were not paying a mentor at all. Like that wasn't even on our radar. And if somebody mentioned it, we thought of it, oh, these are scammers. They're just trying to get our money, blah, blah, blah. We can teach ourselves this. So that's how we built everything over the next 4 years after that. It's just, like you mentioned earlier, we'd read a little bit, we'd go try it, we'd fail, we'd go research what we failed at, we'd get better at it next time. And it worked to some degree. It wasn't until summer of 2022, we bought our first apartment building. It was a 16 unit here in Virginia. And we did not know a thing about apartments. I had never read in a multifamily book. Anytime a podcast would pop up where somebody was talking about multifamily, I'd skip through it, had no interest in it. But this came available on the surface. We underwrote it. We didn't even know what a cap rate was. Like we didn't know how to analyze, but we underwrote it just like we would a single family house. It's not that way. We know that now. But we did that. We bought this thing using a residential real estate agent that represent us. Like that was a big mistake as well. But we went through all that process. Now we got this 16 unit building. And I remember the moment that Bill and I, my partner, looked at each other. We said, we don't have a clue what we're doing. This is not a single family house. So it was right then, right there. That was July of 2022. Started researching masterminds and with the intent to get an education on this because now we own it and we want to buy more, but we need to know what we're doing. And that's where we landed on one that we both like. It's a bunch of them out there, but we did our research, landed on one we liked, joined it, and it wasn't, I don't know, probably a month after we joined, we went to a live event they had. And right away, I did a complete 180 on the idea of mentorship. I was in a room with bigger fish than me. All of them welcomed me with open arms. What do you need? And I got to like just lay out all the challenges and things I didn't know without being embarrassed about it. And ever since then, man, we have probably overspent on mentors and consultants, but I don't regret a single thing of it. And it was a very specific moment that drove it with that apartment building.
Yeah, that's great. Just mind me asking, how did you finance that apartment building at
Yeah.
that time?
So one of the fortunate and unfortunate things of Bill also had a really good corporate job. We both had really high incomes and we had a lot of savings. So we had over the years built up a lot of liquidity. So all the stuff we did pretty much out of pocket or through lines of credit because we just never educated ourselves on creative financing and bridge funding and stuff. We didn't understand it, didn't know anything about it. So that apartment building, which was a value add project, we just went to our local bank, the same bank that was doing our single family houses when we were doing the Burr. It wasn't a terrible loan, but we just went to them. They said, okay, 30% down. We had the capital. We put 30% down. Hindsight, we could have syndicated it. We could have raised that capital. There's a lot of things we could have gotten a bridge loan that would have been less out of pocket to do our value add, but we did the down payment out of pocket. We did all the value add costs, the rehab out of pocket. And, at the end of that, we had several $100,000 of our own capital locked up into that apartment building. So 3 years later, everything's fine. Like it's worked out. But to answer your question, we funded it with a traditional loan and everything out of pocket. So
It's always amazing when you look back on things, right? Like how much you don't know either hurts you or helps you. Sometimes it helps, but a lot of times it hurts you.
well, the funny thing is, and we were joking about this recently, if somebody brought that deal to us today, knowing what we know now, we would probably not even look at it. Like we would just look at the sales price and look at the rent roll and say, no, that doesn't add up. But 3 years later, we have a good property and we've done a cost segregation on it and we've gotten the tax benefit from it. And long term, this is going to be a mega property for us. The point I'm making is, had we known what we know now, we wouldn't have gotten into this project that ends up being good. But that's just, I don't know, that's the way we've done everything.
What's the saying in real estate that time heals all wounds
Oh,
when it
yeah,
comes to
100%.
so that's awesome. All right, so now you're buying a multifamily. You joined the mastermind, which I know which mastermind this is. I've basically sucked half the members out for this podcast so far in the last few weeks. Talk to me about your then transition, because I went through this transition as well, from flipper rental buyer to hard money lender, and then like again getting another mentor who I know who that is,
Mm-hmm.
and starting your current business and what that looked like and why you made that transition.
Yep. So and it's a lot of gaps that like I could spend 2 hours kind of filling in every gap, but I'll give you the kind of the on the surface view of it. Before we left our corporate careers, we had started lending some of our own capital, and like as we were building our rental portfolio, leading up to us leaving our careers, we had gotten to a point in scale where we had started to have to use some hard money loans ourselves because we were doing 4 or 5 houses at a time and our capital ran out and we had just bought that apartment building, right? And that sucked out a lot of capital. So a couple things happened pretty quickly. One, we started using hard money loans. We used a couple of them. And I remember thinking like, golly day, man, I want to know more about that business. Again, back to my brain, like I want to figure everything out and do it on my own because these hard money lenders, and we dealt with a couple of them, but they weren't investing themselves. Like none of them were investors themselves. They were kind of loan brokers. And I said, man, like I'm an investor. If I could do that and there's a lot of headaches that they're causing me in this process of flipping this house or doing this Burr. that I think I could eliminate because I know the game. I know how to figure these little nuances out and, eliminate some of the headache on the borrower side. So that was the initial part of it. We kind of started learning the hard money process through being borrowers. And then we started lending just little bits at a time. We might do, or I would do like $1,000 loan, to somebody I know very well that I trusted, very low documents, all that stuff. So we did a couple of
Was
those.
this personal cash or was this IRA money?
It was personal cash or from my line of credit. And it wasn't much. But then when I left my job in 2022, I had a you know, pretty big 401k, 17 years of maxing it out. So it had gotten pretty big. I rolled all that into a self-directed account. At the time, I was like, I don't know what I want to do with everything. I invested in a couple syndication deals, things like that. And I said, I'm going to do some more hard money loans with it. So I had to kind of educate myself on how to do that with self-directed money, which it's easier than it sounds. But I started doing that. And, it doesn't, you're in the game too. You don't have to do much math to realize that if you underwrite properly and if you're lending on good deals, it is a very profitable business model. We went to one of these mastermind events, and I don't mind sharing her name, but Kelly Garrett, who runs Rehab Wallet out of South Carolina, we met her and started learning her business a little bit just in conversation with her. And it was so intuitive to us. Like everything she said, it was boom, I understand how that works. I understand how that works. We can do this. So we get home from that event, start talking about, we just didn't know how to structure it all. Start talking about, we can do this. We're going to have to raise investor capital to scale it. Didn't even know how to set up a fund or anything like that. So we scheduled a call with Kelly. She basically spilled everything to us, let us know how it's all structured, how the numbers work. We hung up from that call. We looked at each other and said, we're pausing everything. We're going to try to do this. Like we have enough reserves to carry things for a while, and our rental portfolio is fine. Let's try to build something here. It wasn't a week of research. We decided to call Kelly and ask, will she kind of mentor or consult for us for the first 12 months? She agreed. We worked out an agreement. And from there, I mean, literally, when I say every part of the process, she held our hands, helping us kind of build the foundation. So we got our fund set up. We started trying to figure out how to raise capital, which for me, it was pretty intuitive because it's a sales type deal. So that wasn't very as difficult as I think it is for a lot of people, but we were able to raise some capital, make some loans with that capital. Once we got our systems and processes set up after, I don't know, it took about 4 to 6 months to really feel like we were hitting our stride. Then we just opened the valve and really started raising a lot of capital and making loans. So a lot of gaps to fill there, but that's kind of the gist of it.
And going back to something you said before, when you're selling insurance and people weren't getting excited about buying, or thinking about their own demise, right? What a big shift to going to raising capital where you get to sell like the idea of being wealthy in the future without doing anything. Like I love raising capital because I know that I'm going to produce a ton of money for my investors, right? And it's fun to watch them get excited. I'm sure that was a huge improvement over selling
Well,
a
yeah.
risk against their death, right?
Yeah. So yes, definitely from like a satisfaction standpoint. And I'll make some comparisons to the two types of sales because it's important. These little nuances are very important because I struggled with it at first. But on the life insurance side, as twisted as it seems, like the only point of satisfaction I ever got in life insurance, something bad had to happen for that. And what I mean by that is like I've had to deliver $1 million life insurance checks to a grieving family. So there's some satisfaction in the sense that I sat down with this family. I feel good about helping them set this up to protect them in this event, but it's at a sad moment, right? So what you're talking about, the satisfaction comes in the moment. Every month they're seeing a distribution or their account go up. So it's instant gratification for them and me. But the hard part was with life insurance, I always had urgency to sell. So like I'm talking to you, Lauren, and you say, let me get with my wife or let me think about it. I'll get with you after the summer. It's an easy thing to say, and it's true. Well, you could die before the end of the summer. So don't think about it too long because something could happen. So you can instill urgency and that could lead to the close of a sale. With this, if I'm talking to accredited investors who are looking to invest $500,000 with me, that money's already somewhere. Not going, if they don't invest tomorrow, they're not going to lose that money. I had to learn how to sell a new product, if you will, that there is no urgency. I just had to build relationships, let them see what we were doing, believe in it, and ultimately when they're ready, invest. So it's a different mindset.
So in insurance, and I've never sold insurance, right? I assume that the relationship you've got with them is pretty important. Would you say that the relationship insurance sales is as important or more important than the relationship you create for bringing a new investor on board?
Yeah, both are very important, just in different ways. A lot of our investors, I don't know them very well, right? I've gotten to know them through networking or referrals and stuff like that, but I haven't spent a lot of time with them. In insurance sales, most folks were calling me because they've had, somebody in their family already dealt with me and vouched for me, and they had a bad claim experience or their rates went up and they were complaining about it at Thanksgiving, and Uncle Joe said to call Jason down at Farm Bureau. So that ended up being 90% of my sales is referrals coming to me. There's so many options to invest in out in the market now that nobody's seeking out CB Capital and Jason Seward to invest in them. So I've got to spend a lot more time really showing them the product and showing them how we mitigate risk, but also letting them know that we're not crooks. At the end of the day, like that's what everybody's worried about. If I give you this $100,000, are you going to Vegas with it? Well, technically I could. I'd go to jail, but technically I could do that. And insurance, they're dealing with a corporation that's, kind of vouching for me as a representative for them. They're not handing me a check. That check's going to Farm Bureau, so it's a little bit different of a mindset.
100%. I mean, referrals are golden in capital raising, right? Because the biggest hurdle you have to get over is, are you going to steal my money? And you're not really, to be honest, a lot of the funds are very, very similar, right? And like how they're structured, maybe different percentages or how it's set up. But at the end of the day, it comes down, who is the operator? And do I believe what they're telling me is true? Are they going to get these returns? And is my capital safe with them that I can grow with them for a long time? So I don't have to go through this process of finding another investment vehicle in 6 months, 9 months, a year, right? And so a referral is golden. And we've raised a ton of money this year alone, just from people that we brought in last year that have referred out to their friends and have reinvested or increased their investments because they have proof of concept with the initial investment.
Yeah, I would. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I'd say at least 5, maybe 6 or 7 of our investors that came in relatively small in the beginning, maybe 50 grand, 100 grand. After about 3-6 months, they kind of see the flow of everything and they start understanding it better. They're testing us, and a lot of them tell us this, like we'll test it out. But a lot of those folks have come behind that with another 500,000 or $1 million. So we've a lot of our recent growth aren't from new investors. It's from same investors that are really believing in what we're doing now and re-upping on it.
But isn't that from a manager side of things, that's what I love. I love to have a nice small group of investors that, because it's less management, you have a better relationship with them, but there's risk involved in having, 1 or 2 huge investors, right? Risk to the business. Can you talk about that just for a second? And
Yeah.
You're 2 years in, so maybe you haven't experienced too much of the pullout that could happen.
We're fortunate so far. We haven't had any investors pull any capital out. So it will come. And, we have processes in place for that. We do offer a liquidity option that after that, we lock their money for a short period. After that, it becomes liquid so they can get it. To your point, I'll kind of like paint the picture. If I've got, let's say I'm trying to raise $10 million. If I've got 4 investors coming in for 2.5 each, if one of them pulls out, or maybe 2 of them pulls out, that's half my fund gone, right? It's better from a fund management standpoint and a risk mitigation to the fund. I'd rather have, 50 investors than 4 to make up that 10 million. Now, we're not going to turn away big investors, right? We have some big investors, but while we continue to have people reinvest and put more money, I still want to keep grinding and getting those $50,000, $100,000 investments, because we don't want one single investor to make up the bulk of our assets under management. And then if they decide to pull out, which we can't stop that, that really decreases our profitability, our assets, all that stuff. So that, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I would love to have just 10 big investors and lock their money up forever and it would be happy, but that's not the model. Like, we're still grinding, trying to get those smaller ones as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I was first starting out, we were raising capital. I thought we were going to go after big institutional, family offices, things like that. And I actually talked to Kelly as well, and she just shook her head and she says, $100,000 at a time,
Yep.
Lauren. $100,000 at a time,
And yeah,
and it's
and
so true.
look how big they have gotten, and their average investment is $100,000 or in that
Yeah.
ballpark.
So Rehab Wallet or PassiveInvesting.com, and they have like $130 million or something under management, and they've been around for 10 years, if that. So
So that's just in the debt fund. They have much more money. That PassiveInvesting.com is kind of an a la carte. An investor can come in and invest in a syndication, or they can go into the debt fund. Yeah, I mean, just in the fund, like Rehab Wallet has been Rehab Wallet maybe 6 years, and it's been quick growth. They've done very well.
yeah, but $100,000 a time, and we've seen similar. Like I think our average investment size like 114,000, right, over the
Yeah,
course of it.
ours is well, I don't, I would say a little bit higher than that because we have had a couple really big investors come in, but we're on an average standpoint, we're probably 250 right now. But, long term, we want to, like, one of the metrics we track, we want that number to go down. More investors, less average.
Yeah. I mean, the other piece of not having big institutional investors is big institutional investors come in swinging a big stick, and they sometimes ask for sweetheart terms that are not as conducive
Correct.
to your overall business strategy. So
Yep.
you have to be careful of what you ask for. Right?
Yep. Exactly
Always
right.
always be careful of what the wishes you make and how they actually show up. We're going to switch gears just a little bit here. So you're on my podcast. You also have a podcast, and I actually love the name of your podcast, which is Burn the Ships. It encompasses a whole mindset of not looking back, moving the ball forward, and taking options away so that you have to move the ball forward. I want you to talk a little bit about that mentality and your story of leaving your W-2, because I guess from my understanding of it, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is you started and you moved out of your W-2 kind of without the business fully formed. So you took a big leap of faith. Now it sounds like you had some capital behind you and some other, you were already doing some real estate, but that's a leap that a lot of people wouldn't take, right? Even myself, we wanted to make sure the business was going to support us. We wanted to make sure that, we weren't going to have to go find another job. So talk to me about the name, talk to me about that mindset a little bit here and how it's benefited you or helped you over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So the podcast Burning the Ships is a play on that, leaving my corporate career, mine and my business partner. Now I host the podcast and handle everything with it, but it's a play on what we did back in 2022, and we burned the ships on that career. There's some nuance there. Like, I didn't burn any bridges. I have great relationships there. I mean, I'm pretty confident that if they had an opening in my territory and I wanted to apply for it, I could probably go back to work there. But when we left our careers, we wanted to have a mindset of there is no going back, right? Like, although we knew that we probably could, we wanted to operate with the mindset of, no, we're all in. Didn't renew my insurance license, right? So intentionally, I could have easily just held on to that just in case. I intentionally, and it wouldn't have been hard and probably not a great decision at the time, but I said, nope, I'm burning the ships. If I need to go back to that job, I'm going to start fresh and I'll go through all the exams if I have to, but I'll let that go. And the mindset there is, the story behind burning the ships is pretty extreme. It's Hernan Cortez in the 1500s. His men were trying to overtake an island, and he burned their ships and literally burned their ships. So they literally had no option but to either take that island or die, right? Ours is not that extreme, but it's just a play on that. When we did it, you're exactly right. It was what we had in real estate did not equal what we were making income-wise in our corporate careers. Really not even close. But what we did have were years of being, and I'm speaking for my partner and I both, we're best friends. We know each other's finances. So we're very similar, but years of being frugal, making pretty good financial decisions. And we had a pretty good runway. Like, a lot of the math we did around leaving was, if not a penny comes in the door, how long can we continue with our personal budgets, having the standard of living we're used to, before we have to go back to work. And for both of us, it was about 4 or 5 years. And that's a blessing. Like we worked hard to get that, but it was about 4 or 5 years. And that's not to mention we had a lot of equity in our real estate that if we had to start selling off houses, we could do that as well, or refinancing them. So we knew we had this window of time, and we bet on ourselves. And it was literally ready, fire, aim. We're going to leave these jobs. We're going to go in. Our initial plan, the minute we left our job, was to start syndicating apartments. Now, remember, this is late 2022. Early 2023, rates started going up, and that whole niche went to hell. I mean, not literally, but it was a bad time for us to focus on that. Fortunately, we found another rabbit to chase with the debt fund and the hard money lending. So the mentality was, we're going to go all in. We're not going to think about another option for at least 3 years. And we did that. And it took less than 2 years to now we're back to where we were income wise, and everything's good. And we'll just keep growing it from there.
That's awesome. I think, the 4.5 years I'm jealous of, because I left my W-2 last year. Right. And that was a big jump. And we still track it. My runway was like 9 months at the time. Right. And then you just kind of add some cash slowly, but it was a big pay cut. It's like a 60% pay cut to leave.
Yeah.
But it was the step that needed to happen to get me from where I was here to where I wanted to be. Otherwise, I was just going to stay here forever. But I think the idea of burning the ships isn't about like, I've got a plan, I'm going to move forward into this. It's about knowing that no matter what happens, you will figure out what that plan is. Right.
That is the 100%. It helped to have a business partner that we complement each other so well. Like where I'm really strong, he's weak. Where he's really strong, I'm weak. That's a good balance. We're very transparent with each other. We know how to check each other just fine. There's no egos involved. So we had that, not only the security of the runway, but the security of each other, knowing that with each other, we're married. Like we're going to get through this. And it's literally like our marriage. The same conversations my wife and I have are the same ones me and him have about the business, and that's, I don't know in my situation that I would have had the I can't say that. I probably would have had the confidence. I don't know that I would have been able to do it as quick as I did without a solid business partner, So that was a big variable that I really don't talk about a lot, but that was a big piece of it.
I think that a business partner can be the worst thing in the world or the best thing in the world. And it honestly probably has a lot less to do with that person and more to do with how your strengths match up with their strengths and how well you communicate.
That's it.
Right. And I think your point about it being like a marriage is so true, because it's not like your buddies and you just kind of shoot the shit and you make things work. Right. It's communicating clearly on what you're expecting and when you're upset, and doing it in a respectful way so that you can figure out a solution to move past it. And I mean, it's very easy to be like, I'm doing more work than him. Why the hell do I give him 50% of the profits, or vice versa. But understanding that you both have a role to play, and you're not going to be able to move as fast or as far by yourself.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, we've raised in less than 2 years about $10 million, and I've done the bulk of that. Well, when we get that much money, what do we have to do with it? We got to make loans. Well, who's done all the loans? My business partner. He's the operator. He operates this company. So it never crosses my mind, and I'm 100% confident he would say the same, of what is he doing? I'm out here raising all this capital. What is he doing? Or the last 3 months, we've had all this capital. He's been making loans. I haven't been a part of that at all. No, I don't even touch it. And it'd be easy for him to say, God, Jason's playing golf every day while I'm making all these loans. And we don't even cross our minds. Like, we just know that and trust that we're all going to carry our weight when we need to carry our weight. And that's how it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. I mean, my business partner is our CFO, and my last business partner, I did all the financial stuff and I absolutely hated it. It sucked the life out of me. Right. And so my current business partner absolutely loves that stuff. He loves the QuickBooks and the bookkeeping and running financial models and all that stuff. And I love talking to borrowers, talking to investors, structuring deals. And so I get to do all the stuff that I love to do, and he gets to do all the stuff that he likes to do and not be in the front. Right. And it just works really well. We meet a couple times a week over Zoom. We work things out, and the business is more profitable because of his skills, and we growing faster because of mine.
That's it. That's it.
That's awesome. So, okay, so you guys are, doing fix and flip loans. You're trying to take the world over here. I think one of the things that I know from the podcast that you do that I think is cool is your fitness stuff, right? So tell us a little bit about like how that got started, what that is, how that got started, and is the goal just so you can play better golf and raise more money?
Yes, that's it. No, I spent kind of going back to like getting out of college and then getting involved with my corporate career. Up until that point, I had always been relatively healthy from the sense of I would just, I'm a smaller person, have high metabolism. I could eat whatever I wanted. So those were my habits, just eating whatever I wanted. Well, when I took that job, it was an office job, right? I sat down, and I'm not a person that sits down, but I had to sit down for the bulk of the day. Like 75% of my day, I was on my butt, either in a vehicle, at an appointment, in a meeting, or at my office, and then at home. So I spent probably 10 to 15 years just not doing a thing, like literally just letting myself go. And I didn't recognize it, right? So I went so many years where I was not working out, maybe getting 5,000 steps a day and eating like crap. And as I got into my 30s, like in my 20s, it didn't really do anything. And as I got into my 30s, it started catching up, started gaining a lot of weight for me, which was a lot of weight. And when I started, I don't know, probably I'd say when I had my second child, which was 2016, I was 34 years old. Just some things happened and just kind of hit me that, if I keep doing it this way, every year I'm gaining 10 pounds. I'm getting less and less healthy. My dad and grandfather both died of heart attacks. We've had diabetes in my family. Like there's a lot of bad things that I'm tracking towards. The mindset was, for me, I just really had to, like everything else, I've really got to lean into something I believe in, and I can really just use it as my motivation. And that became, these kids are going to get older. They're going to want to do stuff with me. They're going to want me. They need me to be a part of their lives and their children's lives, physically and mentally. And I started taking that serious. So I just really leaned hard on not just working out and trying to eat healthy, but educating myself on everything to do with that. So proper nutrition, how to exercise to hit certain targets or goals that I was doing. So I really leaned into it. And then that went right into COVID, where now we're at home, and it was either sit around and eat snacks all day or stay active in the house. And I really doubled down and just got really fit during all that lockdown period and stuff. And then in September of 2021, my business partner and I and another person started a daily workout streak where we could see who could go the longest without missing a day of a workout. And we had rules around it, like what defined a workout, thinking maybe it might last through the holidays that year, a couple months. And as I sit here today, we're, September of this year will be 4 straight years that we haven't missed a workout. And I mean, we're not doing that to, like you said, to be a better golfer or anything like that. I mean, all those are good benefits, but we're doing that and my partner's the same way. We're trying to stay healthy for our kids. We want to set good models, show them good habits so they don't have the bad habits we did when we were in our 20s and stuff like that. And it's, other than my wife and kids, obviously the business, but my health and fitness is right at the top of the priority list right now, and will be until the day I die.
Yeah, and I brought this up for a reason because I am of the same mindset,
Okay.
right? I have not missed a day of working out since December 27th of 2023.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now I don't have a group, and from listening to your podcast, I think you guys are probably a little more intense than mine are, but minimum 45 minutes every single day. And I give myself credit for that. I missed 3 days when we went to Disney World last year in the first week of May.
Hey,
So
let me tell you, so I'm gonna make you feel better about those 3 days. If you were at Disney World, I guarantee you got 20,000 steps or more.
27,000 on average those days.
That's a workout. 100% a workout.
So my year is the 2nd of May that I'll be full. And I do it for a couple of reasons. I had diagnosed with a kidney disease in November of 2023, and it just changed like everything. It changed a ton of different stuff, and it made me focus more on me. But part of what I believe makes me as an entrepreneur successful is my consistency and my gritty mindset. And there are days when I wake up at 5 every morning and work out. There are days that it hurts to get out of bed, that I don't want to get up. It's cold outside. Pick a reason. But the grit to do it, even if you don't want to, is the same grit that you need to build a CRM, call that lead at 4:30 in the afternoon, take a phone call that you don't want to, that's uncomfortable, do something, some unsexy part of entrepreneurship that we all have to go through, that if you don't do, the business doesn't grow. The mindset that I need to do the workout is the same thing that I can translate directly into growing.
100%. And can I add a couple things to that? Because I'm
Please.
thinking the same way. I want, and this is very important to me. I want a reputation as somebody that shows up and that doesn't let people down and that is consistent in their actions and things like that. So not only is it important for me to get that workout in every day, but if we're in a competition. The funny part, whoever loses this contest, there's nothing on the line but pride. That's it. So we don't have like $1,000 on the line or anything like that. If Bill calls me up one morning and say, "Hey man, I got bad news. I forgot to work out yesterday," I'm going to be so disappointed and upset with him. Like I'm going to be very upset that now the streak is over and I can't get, and he will be with me. Neither one of us want to let the other one down. So that like added layer of accountability is important. But the other piece is I'm so public about it. And I'm sure people get tired of hearing about our workout streak because I talk about it all the time. But there's a reason for that, because as I continue growing in business, people are going to want to know who I am and what I'm about. And if they can see examples of consistency and discipline in my life, then they'll see that that's who I am as a person. So I consistently do a workout every day. I consistently do for 100, and I think we're 135 episodes of the podcast. Since we started, I've consistently done 2 episodes every week. I don't talk about real estate much at all on that podcast. It has nothing to do with my main business. It's just a library of information showing consistency and cool conversations about cool topics that people might like. But overall, I'm trying to double down on my reputation as somebody that shows up. I do what I say I'm going to do. I'm consistent with it and I'm disciplined. And that attracts people in my world, I think. The right people that I want to deal with.
Sad but true that it doesn't take that much to be exceptional anymore.
Yeah.
The general population is overweight, broke, and I think just being able to consistently show up just sets you head and tails above everyone else. And at the end of the day, what you're saying is exactly right. Reputation is incredibly important, right? And it starts with a small microcosm of people around you, and it grows and grows and grows. And it's so hard to grow it and make a good reputation for yourself. It's so easy to lose it. And so doing the things that you say you're going to do, even if they're uncomfortable, is critical.
And you know who's benefiting from it the most are my kids. They're little itty bitties. And my daughter is in a workout streak with some of her friends as well. And they have to do, it's a easy workout. Like I think 25 squats, 25 push-ups, 25 sit-ups, 25 jumping jacks every day. And they're going on like 5 months straight. They haven't missed a day. So she's doing that because she sees her daddy doing it. Right. And that's so important to me, but
yeah, but the first 5 anything are the hardest, right? After that, once you're in it, it's easy. My oldest son plays travel baseball, and it's similar too, right? It's like, other kids are doing whatever and he's out hitting balls off the tee. Like I don't always have to tell him, I remind him sometimes, but he's out hitting balls off the tee. He's doing sprints, and it's because of that dedication that he's gotten as good as he has. We're still a long ways where we want to go, and we're recently going through a stage where we've changed teams, and now we're kind of on the bottom of the totem pole again. So we're sitting on the bench a lot. He's like, "Dad, how do I get more playing time?" I'm like, "You're doing everything right. You just got to trust the process. Keep hitting balls. Keep doing the handwork. Keep running. Like it'll all work itself out. That puberty train's going to hit, and half these kids are going to find girls, and they're going to disappear from baseball anyways."
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So, all right. So want to kind of end this on the question I like to ask all of my guests. So I've learned a ton in the last 5 years since I've started real estate. And I am looking forward to expressing that to my kids. And so the question I ask everybody is, knowing what you know today, not what you expect to know in 20 years or what you did know, knowing what you know today, what would you tell your 20-year-old self advice wise, or what would you tell your kids when they're about 20 based on your current knowledge?
Okay. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with money, career, anything like that. And what I would like to go back and tell my 20-year, like I chalk everything, every failure I've had as experience. I try to view it in a positive light. Everything negative that's happened in my life, I try to find what I've gained positive out of it. So with that mindset, there's really not much I would go back and change. Like would I have gone into real estate sooner? Of course. Would I have invested or saved more money? Of course. Would I have bought that brand new truck in 2012? Of course not. These are things but I wouldn't change them because I learned from every one of those. So number one, I would tell my 20-year-old self, just keep trying stuff. Don't get discouraged when things don't work out or you make a bad choice, dust it off and keep going. But the one thing I would have changed was I had really bad habits, and this goes back to like the health and fitness thing. I had really bad habits after high school around health and nutrition because all through high school, I played all the sports. I was active all the time. I could eat whatever I wanted and burn it off. I didn't develop good habits until my mid 30s around all that stuff. And that's 15 years of like the way I view it. I'm getting it back now, but it's 15 years I've wasted taking time off my life. So if I could go back and change that, I would have just been more responsible with my lifestyle choices as far as food and alcohol and exercise and things like that. And that's what I want. That's exactly what I would tell my kids. I would tell them, go out. I want my kids to be independent and hard to kill. Like there's two things. Like I want them to know how to do things on their own and figure it out. And I want them, and what I mean by hard to kill is they don't quit. Like they're never going to stop. And if they can do that and focus on their health and longevity, this is going to be a good life for them. Everything else they'll figure it out. So
awesome. It's been a pleasure having you on. If people want to reach out to you to learn more about you or your fund or what you're doing, where's the best place for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'll give you like our link tree and everything with all of our social media and stuff. But the easiest place, just email me. My email is Jason, JASON at 608B as in boy, capital.com. So Jason at 608bcapital.com. And again, Lauren, if you'll drop the links and stuff, we'll have all that below. And I'm on all the Facebook and Instagram. I'm just Jason Seward. So you can look me up on there and we put out a lot of content, but we have somebody that handles that for us. So there's plenty of stuff to get to know me better out there on social media.
Yeah, I'll make sure all your links and your OnlyFans are are in the comments. So, but thank you, sir. It's been a real pleasure. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk again next week.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Brick by Brick Wealth Building Conversations. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more people find the show. For more tips, resources, and updates on my journey, follow me on Invest with Lauren. Let's keep building wealth, one brick at a time. See you next week.